Series number 1 was the importance of recruitment and the recruitment process. Webinar number 2, the selection process. And today we're going to be talking about the hiring process. The Canadian Agricultural HR Council is a national nonprofit organization focused on addressing human resource issues facing agricultural businesses across Canada with a vision to creating a qualified and motivated workforce that is sufficient to sustain profitable agriculture in Canada. It is CAHRC's mission to develop solutions to support the HR management needs of agriculture. Again, let's review the recruitment, selection, and hiring learning objectives in this series. By the end of this webinar series, you will be able to identify the process for recruiting, selecting, and hiring workers, explain how to use job descriptions, discuss the process of selecting workers in adherence with legal obligations, evaluate the effectiveness of recruitment and selection methods, design a selection interview, formulate an offer of employment, and evaluate the effectiveness of new hire welcome and orientation programs. I've created a couple polls again, questions for us today, so I think we're going to go to the first poll. Just wanted to get some information from you on what you're doing for recruitment and selection. So Andrew, can you ask us the first question?
Absolutely. And again, a reminder for those of you who are listening today, we are recording our session, and that'll be available for playback. And if you have any questions you want to ask Tracy along the way, we welcome those at any time. You can either ask your questions using the telephone line or type them into the question box. Either way, we'll get your questions, Tracy, and we'll handle those as quickly as possible. So thank you for responding to the poll. We'll just wait for a few more seconds to let the final respondents answer. And we will see which part of the recruitment process, is it recruitment, selection, or hiring, which gives you the most difficulty or that you find the most difficult. And let's just close the poll and see the results. And those are, it looks like, Tracy, it was 60% on recruitment and 40% on selection.
Wow, that's surprising. So yes, I guess then the recruitment is something that's making you stay awake at night, as we say around here. Oh, well, I guess we'll do the second poll too while we're at it.
Excellent. Let me pull that up. So our next question is, in terms of recruitment, do you have a recruitment process set up within your organization? Something to guide you every step of the way. All right, answers are coming in fast and furious. We'll give another second for some final respondents. And we'll see what that looks like. We'll just close off the poll. Share the results. And so a few people have no process whatsoever, and then for the most part, the majority have somewhat of a process in place.
Good. So well, hopefully that you watching the seminar and getting into our HR toolkit, you'll be able to set up those processes that you need and have all of the documents and templates that you need as well to help you do that. All right, so we'll continue on. Webinar 3 is the hiring process. So hiring workers is one of the most important business activities. When you hire motivated, committed, and qualified people, it helps your operation to achieve its goals. When you hire the wrong people, it can affect productivity, profitability, turnover, and workplace morale. Did you know that 80% of turnover is a result of hiring the wrong person? In addition to hiring the right people, it is important to follow the right processes for hiring them. When the hiring process is fair, consistent, and well documented, you eliminate the risk of facing extensive discrimination and human rights claims. Let's do a quick review from Webinar 2. Step 6 was preparing the interview, or preparing for the interview. Plan the candidate selection process and identify selection tools. Develop a resume application review process and decide which interview questions to ask and decide how to rate candidates. In step 7, you will conduct the interview. Here you will know how to start the interview, conduct the interview, understand interview etiquette tips, and the interview, and provide a realistic job preview. Step 8 is checking references. This will help you to conduct reference checks to verify factual information about candidates and confirm the accuracy of the information they provided about their responsibilities and achievements. What are the steps to recruitment, selection, and hiring? We have reviewed the steps from Webinar 1 for recruitment, which involves finding and creating a pool of qualified candidates, and from Webinar 2 for selection, which involves narrowing down that pool to the individual you would like to hire. Today we'll explore the hiring process, which involves extending an offer and welcoming your new worker. Let's review again the last step we looked at, step 8, which involves checking references. Many of the principles that apply for the selection interview also apply to a reference checking interview. Use behavioral questions. Answers to behavioral questions are one of the best indicators of future job performance, so focus on asking the references about the candidate's past performance. You can use the behavioral questions you developed for the selection interview to guide the conversation with the person providing a reference. Avoid general questions. Ask specific rather than general questions. So instead of asking, how did they do, or what do you think of this person, ask, how did they perform when monitoring machines? Or was this person punctual, or was this person a team player, or was this person detailed-oriented? What you need to do is avoid non-work questions. So ask only questions that are related to the position's requirements, and avoid questions about the candidate's personality, personal life, health status, and other areas that are not relevant to their work performance. Talk to supervisors. Where possible, contact former supervisors of the candidate, as they are likely to be the most accurate sources of information. Assure the referees that the information they provide will be confidential, and where possible, speak to more than one reference. And finally, keep a record. Make note of the information provided during the reference checks so that you can refer to them when making the hiring decision. I think we're going to have another poll now, Andrew.
All right. Yes, Tracy. So you mentioned earlier that one of the areas that caused some concern was the selection process. So we'll do a quick poll on whether or not you guys have a formal selection process within your organization. Sure, just a quick yes or no on that, and we'll see how we do there. You guys are being very responsive. And again, remember, if you have any other questions, you can either raise your hand, unmute your line, and ask it directly, or if you're the shy type, just type it into the question box, and we can certainly get to it that way as well. We'll just wait another second, and it looks like we have some mixed results. So we have about half the people have somewhat of a selection process, and then the rest of them have no selection process at all. So that's good. And we'll ask another quick question in terms of reference checking, which is one of the most important parts of the selection process. So very quickly, when you do check references, how many references do you prefer to contact? 1, 2, 3, or more than 3? See how diligent our attendees are in terms of reference checking. All right, voting is almost completed. Excellent. We'll just tie that up and share the results. So some pretty diligent folks. On the whole, most people are looking at 3, and then occasionally 2 references, which is, I think, a pretty good, good way of doing it.
Yeah, I think 3 is a good number, because then that kind of gives you that chance between 2 different people in case they say maybe the same thing or maybe opposite things. So that third person might be the deciding factor to help you select the right person. We will continue on with the hiring process. So step 9 is hiring the appropriate candidate. So based on information from the resume, interview, and reference checks, you can now choose the most appropriate candidate and provide a written offer of employment. Your offer to the successful candidate can be presented in person, by telephone, by email, or by a letter. A written offer of employment includes job title and level, job description, salary and benefits, starting date and probation period, length of contract, any other conditions of employment. There are different types of offers of employment as well. Sometimes you may choose to make a conditional offer pending satisfactory results from, say, a criminal records check or a driver's records check. These checks must be bona fide requirements and include the employer's duty to accommodate. Note that these checks must be related to the job in question, and written consent is required before you can request such checks. Bona fide occupational requirements are the skills, aptitudes, educational accomplishments, and other attributes that a person must possess in order to be able to perform the essential parts of a job in a safe, efficient, and reliable manner. For example, an individual cannot ordinarily be refused employment because of a record of offenses. This means employment decisions cannot be based on whether a person has been convicted and pardoned for an offense under a federal law, for example, the Criminal Code, or convicted under a provincial law, for example, the Highway Traffic Act. However, there may be cases where an employer can refuse to hire someone based on a record of offenses if it is reasonable or a bona fide qualification. If a job requires the worker to drive farm machinery, for example, an employer could refuse employment to an applicant who has serious or repeated driving conviction. An employer's duty to accommodate refers to their obligation to adjust an employment practice, environment, or schedule to accommodate individuals unless it would cause undue hardship to the business. This requirement applies to existing workers and job candidates. For example, if a job requires heavy lifting, you may be required to alter some of the job requirements rather than disqualify a candidate with a back injury. Needs that must be accommodated could be related to a person's gender, their age, disability, family or marital status, ethnic or cultural origin, religion, or any of the other factors identified in the Canadian Human Rights Act or Employment Equity Act. When can accommodations be denied? Accommodation poses an undue risk to the health and safety of that person or others, so for that reason it can be denied, or the cost of a proposed accommodation is so high that it affects the very survival of the business.
Tracy, I'm wondering if you, there's a question here. I'm wondering if you could address, if you go back to the duty to accommodate, if you could sort of comment a little more on, or give some examples on the differences between the sorts of things that would need to be accommodated for, and then others that would sort of fall outside the bounds. Can you shed a little light on that?
So according to legislation, you cannot disqualify a candidate from having that job if they do let you know and you are aware. So say a sore back, or they've hurt their back while on the job, or come in because on the weekend they fell off a ladder or something and hurt themselves. So you cannot disqualify them or let them go because of those reasons. You have to give them, at least your duty is to accommodate that worker. So while, say, they broke an arm or something, if there's something that you can do to help them still continue to do their job, it may be, as we stated already, perhaps it's just being able to not lift things so heavy, and someone else would help them with that. Or if they were in a job where they didn't have to go out, they could have some kind of indoor job to do while they got better. So you have to be very careful about making sure that you can accommodate them, but there are some, times where you just can't accommodate them, because if you need them to have a clean driving record and they don't, and they have multiple infractions on their driving record, then it's your responsibility, and I'm sure your insurance would not like it either to have someone on your staff that has a bad driving record. So then you would be able to, because that's going to be a bona fide requirement to actually work for you. I think we have a poll right now, Andrew, too.
We have one left over, the one about the written job. All right, let's do our fifth and final poll for today. So do you always use a written offer of employment when you hire somebody in your operation? Okay, we've got a very responsive bunch. The votes are coming in, and we can close this off now, and it looks to be somewhere between sometimes and always seems to be the response to a written offer of employment.
Good. That's surprising, because a lot of people that I talk to never give a written offer of employment, and we're just going to talk about that now. So there are 3 steps to the hiring process. Step 1 is prepare the offer letter. So if you prepare a written offer of employment that includes the position, title, and level, job description, salary, benefits, starting date, probationary period, the length of the contract if applicable, and any other conditions of employment. Ensure that your offer is in line with all applicable legislation, including minimum wage requirements, age restrictions on types of work, and maximum allowable set hours of work. Step 2, you're going to extend the offer. So ensure that the letter of offer or employment contract is signed before the individual starts work in order to create a legally enforceable document. By signing the letter of offer, the new employee indicates his or her acceptance of the position according to the conditions stated in the offer. You should keep these papers in the employee's personnel file and provide a copy to the employee. And step 3 is contact the unsuccessful candidates. Once the selection candidate has signed the letter of offer and officially become an employee, you can contact the unsuccessful candidates to let them know the job has been filled. This can be done by telephone, email, or letter. This communication can be brief, but at a minimum, it should thank the candidate for their interest in working for your business and wish them well in their career. We have loaded a template for the sample offer of employment into the handout section of this webinar. So this template can also be found in the CAHRC toolkit. The job offer letter is a sample cover letter with a place for the signature of the new employee. And the second page is the job offer attachment, which you can use to create a pay and benefits outline to attach to each job offer letter. On welcoming and orientation, when you hire new workers, it is useful to have a standard orientation process that simply introduces them to your business. An orientation process does more than simply provide information about your business policies and procedures. It helps new employees learn about their role and about the culture and values of your business. An effective orientation process benefits your workers and your business in a number of ways. Workers can become productive sooner. Workers can feel more welcomed and appreciated. It reduces turnover and recruiting costs. It reduces the cost of training other workers. It improves workplace health and safety, and it also improves workplace culture and teamwork. Making your new hires feel welcome on their first day can make a big difference. New workers may feel nervous and unsure about starting their new role, and when they are given more information and guidance, it reduces their anxieties and helps to make their first day successful. Contact the new hire a week before they start to provide information about the first day, including directions to the work site, information about parking or public transit, what to wear, what time to arrive and how long to expect to be at work, the name of their supervisor. Greet the new hire when they arrive on their first day. Introduce the new hire to as many people as possible. Invite the new hire to eat lunch and or take breaks with everyone. Ensure that all necessary equipment, tools, and paperwork are ready for use. And check in with the new hire throughout the day for about any questions or concerns that they may have. There are some key questions to address when orienting new employees. What do employees need to know about the workplace that will make them safe? Which policies and procedures do employees need to be aware of to avoid mistakes? Which policies should be reviewed with the employee at a later date to ensure understanding? And what information will ensure that a new employee clearly understands what is expected of them and how their job fits into the whole operation? Generally, an orientation process includes a brief description of the farm's history and current operations, a business overview including production targets and key objectives, a review of the organizational chart, a tour of the farm including facilities, equipment, and hazardous areas, a chance to meet and chat with all the members of the team, and a description of the job requirements and expectations. The orientation process also includes completion of paperwork, including how the employee will be paid, key safety information. The CAHRC Toolkit provides an orientation safety checklist as well, a review of key aspects of the farm's management, including roles and responsibilities of various staff, policies and practices, and the CAHRC Toolkit contains an HR policy manual sample as well that you can look at, information about the farm's values, and emergency contact information. So I put the orientation checklist template up in the handout section of the webinar, and you'll be able to download it from there as well as access it from the CAHRC Toolkit. This will really help you, though, make sure you haven't missed anything, and gives you a little checklist there to make sure that you've completed the various areas to orientate the new employee. Just to review a final time, legislation applies to all areas of HR, so it is important to be aware of these areas and keep them in mind when completing HR tasks. Lawyers and legal counsel are always available to you when you are unsure how legislation applies to your work. In addition to general employment standards, some provinces also have special rules that apply to the agriculture industry. So ensure that you review the requirements set out by your provincial or territorial Ministry of Labor. Do I have any questions?
Actually, there was one that came in a little bit earlier, Tracy, when you were talking about the written offer of employment. A question came in as to what do you do in the case where the employee, a prospective employee, refuses to sign the document? Do you have any advice in that case?
Well, to me, not signing the document is tantamount to really not wanting the job. If you can't agree, or okay, there may be something very contentious to it, but I've had more people when we've given these seminars come to me and say, I didn't do an offer, like to give them a signed document to sign, and didn't they show up in running shoes every day? Whereas we have a requirement that they absolutely have to wear work boots to protect themselves and that. But because I hadn't written it down, then I'm caught out because the employee says, well, it was never written down and it was never given to me verbally. So it's always important to have that signed offer, and then I think it would foster discussion. I think the employee that the incoming employee would be able to say, well, I don't agree with this, and then maybe tell you why, and then maybe in their case that makes total sense. But as far as I'm concerned, this is your written agreement, and if they don't want to sign a piece of paper that agrees to the terms and conditions of their employment, I would start looking for another employee.
All right, that's helpful. Remember, if any of you have any questions, you can just raise your hand or unmute your phone or just type it into the question box. There was one other question that came in with regards to the legal requirements. You mentioned those briefly. Can you provide a little more information in terms of what those legal requirements are and what, as an employer, they should be aware of.
And so I'm going to take you on a little tour of the CAHRC Toolkit right now, and in there I will show you the section that actually links to the various provincial legislation and requirements, so that you'll be able to see that you can find that information easily in the CAHRC Toolkit. So would you like to do that now?
Yeah, and just one last question. You mentioned that there were several types of ways of making offers, and then you focus mostly on the written offers of employment. Can you explain why that would be the preferred way, of why you should always have a written offer versus a verbal one or any other means?
Well, like we were just discussing, so to make sure that all the terms and conditions are clearly spelled out so there's no confusion there for anyone. I can understand and appreciate that, especially on a farming operation, there are some jobs that you just need a person to come in for X amount of hours that day, maybe on a sporadic basis or something, or if it's an employee that you've had working in that capacity for a few years, where you would just have a verbal agreement with that person. But really, to protect yourself and the employee at the same time, we really would strongly recommend that you do the written offer of employment.
Okay, great. Well, that does it for the online questions. So again, feel free to ask your additional questions if you have any, and I think it's good to switch over to the toolkit.
Good. I'm just going to take us to the spot. So when you do that login, this is the page that will bring you to. So it's our welcome page, our splash page for the CAHRC Toolkit. If you haven't already accessed that link, it will ask you first to sign up. So I won't go through that process because that's pretty straightforward. But once you are signed up, you will be assigned a password, and then you will be able to log in.
And while you're doing that, Tracy, I just want to remind everyone, if you weren't part of the original of the first two webinars, we'll be reinforcing that again today. But as part of the arrangement with the Alberta canola producers, you will all have access to the toolkit provided free of charge. So there'll be a coupon code. I think you'll mention it later.
Yep.
So if you haven't signed up yet, you'll be able to do that, and you will not be charged to access this toolkit. That's one of the benefits that you will be able to receive. So just wanted to mention that.
When you do get your login and you do log in, you'll be welcomed with your name, and that can get you started up here in the right-hand corner. Very typical of other website setups is where you'll find your profile information, where you can also find what bookmarks that you use. If there's places where you want to remember to go back to immediately, you can find a list of bookmarks there. And this is also where you are going to log out. Through our various focus groups and the things that we did talk to people about before we launched this site, especially our advisory committee, they were very interested in making sure that we really address the issues that people in agriculture were really concerned about, but to do it in a very plain spoken way. So it was actually their idea for us to design this page like this, and it was their idea to put that question there, what keeps you up at night? Because they all felt that this was something that everybody is struggling with. And if we put it out front and center there and made these tiles like they are, so trying to, in very plain language, if you're not used to the technical terms such as, recruitment, selection, and hiring, you would go and look for finding skilled workers. So trying to make it easy for you to navigate through the site to begin with until you become more familiar with it. There's a little quiz here that you can start, which is going to ask you these questions. What keeps you up at night? So you can take that little quiz, and then it will actually pop out some of the areas that maybe you should be looking at or that you would find interesting. At the very bottom of this page, it's also quick ways to get to other places within the toolkit that where you may have some questions or an area that you need some further skill in. So because of ours, on the left-hand side, you can also see the technical terms or the true HR terms that are used to describe the various areas in the HR toolkit. We will be going, you can access either way, navigate through that, but you can go right to the Find Skilled Workers, and that will take you to the Recruitment, Selection, and Hiring section, of where on the left-hand side, it will then blow out the whole menu so you can see all of the various subheadings or chapter headings however you want to describe that, and then you can start looking through the toolkit as well. So right away, this module, it's showing you what the module is going to help you to do, and the links right away to going to those specific places. You can just go page by page and read it like that. If I can get it to go, there we go. And it'll continue to go on there. So here's also, I wanted to point out, because here's a spot right here on understanding your legal obligations. There are navigation buttons up here as well to take you directly from the top of the page down to that spot on the page, so that's pretty handy. So these are some of the things we were talking about today, the bona fide occupational requirements, gives some examples there, also gives you links to go to where the Employment Equity Act is, or the Canadian Human Rights Act. Also for to go to where the Canadian Centre for Occupational Health and Safety is, or look at a Parliament report on drug testing in the workplace. Also specified the human rights by province. So here's the links to go to those particular sections in your own province, so you can see what your provincial requirements are. Back onto the actual navigation through, you can go directly to recruitment. So just much as what we described and showed you in these last 3 webinar series, you can work your way through each one of those to look at things. I like the summary of key points at the end of every section. So here's high-level points of all of the things that we've covered and things that would be interesting to you to be able to understand what the terms actually mean. And as I was giving you the templates as we went along, but here is where you also access all of the templates that we have created that will help you in this process. And we have the same kind of templates for the various sections within the HR toolkit. So the reference check template, so I pretty well downloaded these and gave them to you as handouts again, but here is where you would actually be able to find them and access them themselves. Specifically things too that you might like is going to seasonal agriculture worker program or the temporary foreign workers. The other cool thing I like is that we have action plans, and this is something that I did not download and give to you as a handout, but I think it would be really interesting if you go in and take a look at these action plans. So it's really shows you how to create some of these things. So how to step-by-step plan for recruiting, selecting, and hiring people. So how to develop a job description. So all of the little tools that you might need, or a list of things it will download. I don't know if you'll be able to see this if I open it. But it will actually download and give you the steps, the materials that you need, so the various templates and anything else that you might need or might need to look at, then some helpful information about those particular steps, and then there's just a little box where you can actually put a timeline down of when do I need to actually start that process or be finished that process. And then a little evaluation at the bottom to see how it went, and did you cover all of the things that you wanted to do, and ask you some questions. Was it easy to do that? Was it easier to do this now that you had some templates and some action and some steps to follow? I think that's another interesting place that you can go to just try and help you step along, and there's quite a few of them there. As we said, there is a place for you to actually, you can utilize bookmarks. So whenever you find a place that you like and want to go back to quickly, you can add a bookmark there and easily get there. And the other place I did want to show you was in HR policies, because most of these sections are very interrelated. But in this particular spot, in the legal obligations of the HR policies, this is to really help you understand your legal obligations. So this is what we were talking about today as well. And in the other 2 webinars, we always brought it up. But you can go to the Employment Standards link, and there it will give you to understand, so some of the descriptions of what different things mean. but it also takes you to the provincial regulations. So you can visit the Employment Skills Development Canada website for a full list of businesses that must meet those requirements, but also you can go to the provincial regulations to link there, so it takes you right to the provincial page of where you need to go to see all of the employment standards for the province of Alberta. All right, were there any questions on the navigation?
Nothing coming in right now at the moment. Tracy, can you talk a little bit about the search function or how this toolkit works on a mobile device?
Yes, it's built totally for mobile, so on a tablet or even a mobile phone. So we have created it in that way because we know that a lot of times you're out someplace and you're not sitting in front of your computer or your laptop, so you can totally use all your devices to access the toolkit, and it's readable and very easy to navigate through. The search function works very much like a search function, so you just put in, if you're not sure what exactly you're looking for, you just put in a string of words or something that you think might hit on the topic. Also, like I said, if you go back into each of the sections, there's a real breakdown of the different types of terminology that you need to know. So it's a pretty good search function. We've done a lot of creating lists that match certain phrases and stuff, even in just plain language. So if you're not really sure what you're looking for, you should be able to find it just by going and using that search function.
Great. Looks like a great resource, and everybody who's on the call would be well served by signing up and making use of these the templates and the tools and the checklists.
Yes, I do, and like I said, you've got access to all of the various sections. So if you haven't got an HR policy set up or HR policy set up on your farm, this would be the time to go in there and take a look at that section and look at the templates and the downloadable tools that you're able to have to help you navigate through that, even the health and safety area and other places that are more concerned. So just wanted to remind everyone that as a participant of this webinar series and in partnership with Alberta Canola, this is your access to the AGRA HR Toolkit. I will send you the link when we do a survey, so in another day or so you will be getting a survey questionnaire if you wouldn't mind filling that out, so that can help us in developing further and giving further webinar series to other people and perhaps again to Alberta Canola. So please visit this link and sign up using the coupon code. But remember that this coupon, it will provide you access to the toolkit for 4 months. But however, you only have until April the 30th to utilize this coupon. So I urge all of you to take advantage of this offer. I've also included in the last email out to everyone and in the handout section today as well the PDF version of the first 2 webinar series. So I'll make that available as well, the PDF version of today's, and we'll also have the recording available probably shortly, so we can send that information out to you as well. So thank you very much. We hope you've enjoyed this webinar series. And final ask for questions?
Just monitoring it now. So again, raise your hand or unmute your line or just type a question and we'll get that to Tracy before we wrap things up today. All right, it looks like we've answered all the questions.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for joining us. We've really appreciated, and we hope that you understand now how better to recruit, select, and hire people.
Excellent. Thanks, Tracy.